Hey everybody, welcome back to Wednesday Words. We are in Colossians chapter 3, verse 12, and we've been looking at the virtues. Paul writes this, and it's short, but there's so much here. He says, therefore, as God's chosen ones, holy and dearly loved, put on compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. And we talked about last week how important it is that we establish the beginning, that we are chosen, that we've been set apart for God's use, and that we are dearly loved. And that without understanding that, and without those things being true about ourselves, we really have no power to put on these virtues. Otherwise, we just start getting into behavior management, and we just try to put these virtues on, and we just try to grab out of our own strength. And if you're anything like me, you're exhausted by lunch. And so here, if you missed last week, make sure that you go back and that you check out last week, because that sets the foundation. So after we realize that we are chosen, that we're holy, that we're dearly loved, the very first thing that Paul tells us to put on is the word compassion. And the Greek word behind that word compassion is oiktirmos. And it is only used a handful of times in the New Testament. This is a very specific word for compassion. Now, of course, you can look in your New Testament, we can look in our English Bibles, and we'll see the word compassion many times in the New Testament. But the Greek word oiktirmos, that's translated compassion, is only used a handful of times. It's a very special word. And it can mean like the seat of our emotions, or even the bowels of mercies, which we don't really talk about bowels a whole lot, but that concept of just that passionate, gut-wrenching, it's very visceral, can be described as a deep feeling of compassion. Now, Paul tells us to put this on, but what is really important is that Paul at no point asks us to put on any virtue that is not already found in God or in Jesus Christ. That God is all of these things, and therefore we as his people are to be these things. And so I want you to see how God expresses this concept of oiktirmos. The very same word is used in 2 Corinthians, and we'll start in verse 3. It says, Paul says, blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort, or the Father of compassions, the God of all comfort. That is oiktirmos, that he is the Father of all of that. That God himself is the source of that kind of compassion. I often think about how would the church receive believers in Jesus Christ if the very first thing that they saw about us was oiktirmos. If this is how we treated people, if that we had this visceral, deep compassion for them. Remember, we can't get this in and of ourselves. God the Father is the source of all of it, and that is who we get this from. So this week, I want you to think about ways that you can show this kind of compassion. Ask the Lord for it, and let's let this be the virtue that people are greeted by first when they meet us.